This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are we doing today on this Tuesday? Hope everybody's doing well today. It's the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Of course, I am Joe Gaither, and you're the viewer watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter at Joe Gaither6, or on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You might be listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We appreciate everybody who has downloaded, rated, reviewed, subscribed to the show. The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, right there on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate everybody jumping in and joining us, and we hope you guys had a very, very good 4th of July weekend. I did myself, so we're ready to get it going as we are now less than a week away from SEC Media Days. We're 53 days away from Alabama kicking it off against Western Kentucky, so it will be here before you know it. The Alabama Crimson Tide will kick off fall camp at the end of the month. They're going to report on the last day or two of the month, and then the final day, July 31st, is when they're going to get things going with a little bit of fall camp practice. So it's right around the corner. Hang on. The summer's closing soon, and football is coming up very, very soon. I know if you are a video gamer, EA Sports College Football 25 is coming out, I believe, next Monday or the Monday coming up. So only about 5-6 days away from that. If that is your speed, you're going to have to tell me what you think of that game, because I do not have a PlayStation 5, so I cannot be playing that game, and that's A-okay. A little bit too old for the video games myself, but I hope you guys have a lot of fun on Monday when that comes out, and I look forward to hearing you guys let me know how the game does turn out. What are we going to do on the show today? Well, we're going to respond to a popular opinion. We're going to respond to Brandon Walker take from Barstool Sports. He basically put out an opinion about Alabama football, and particularly about Alabama football fans, that we are going to walk our way through. So we hope you guys jump in and join us on the comment section. The kind of premise is going to be, what is the worst case scenario for the Alabama Crimson Tide this season, and what will get Kalen DeBoer, what will get the hot seat going for Kalen DeBoer? We know Alabama fans, rightfully so, have high expectations, basically, that have been established here at the university dating back to the days of Coach Bryant and Wallace Wade and Frank Thomas even before. So the high expectations are nothing new here in Tuscaloosa, and we want to kind of explore the negative side of things today. We usually like to keep things positive, and 2 weeks ago we were joined by my friend Mason Woods as we predicted the Alabama football season. And so, but this is going to be a little bit more creative, and we want to see kind of what ends up being on the negative side of things for Alabama football. Before we do that, though, let me tell you about our newest sponsor, Purple Turtle Roofing. Let me tell you about the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi, Purple Turtle Roofing. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all roof replacement needs. Call Dustin and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for a free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free, and they're going to make sure that you're prepared for any of life's storms. You know how it is in Alabama. Storms pop up pretty regularly, and so you're going to want to make sure that your roof is ready for it. Call Purple Turtle Roofing today at 877-787-6635, and we appreciate Dustin and his team jumping on and joining the Joe Gaither Show. You can be like my friend Steven Stingray as he comments on Facebook. You can comment on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. He's already going ahead and getting ahead of the game, and we love that, Stingray. Make sure you check out Stingray's show as well on Tide 100.9. He is saying 9-3 is the worst case scenario for Alabama football this year. I'm going to take it even further, but before we dive into it, we might as well set the table and set the premise. Brandon Walker went out onto social media the last day or two, and this was his comment about Alabama football.
I am Brandon Walker, the most honest man in college football media, and I am here to tell you the truth about the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2024. And the truth about the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2024 is it's about to spawn the biggest meltdown of a fan base you have ever seen in your life. Sure, they're saying the right things now, and I'm not here to doubt Kalen DeBoer. He's a very good coach. I'm not here to doubt the players. They're very good players. I'm here to doubt Alabama fans when they say they'll be just fine losing 2 or 3 games, maybe even 4 games. Because Saban lost 6 in his first season, why not Kalen DeBoer? We understand, we get it, it's a new era. No, they're lying. They are lying. Alabama fans are the biggest fair weather pieces of crap in America, and the second, and they haven't lost more than 2 games in a season since 2007. It's been 17 years. The second this man loses 3 games this year, and he's going to lose at least 3 games this year, they are going to lose their gump minds. They're going to go crazy. They will not be able to handle it. Remember a couple years ago when Brian Harsin lost some games at Auburn, so Auburn fans made up an affair, a rumor of an affair that he had? Guess what? It's going to be worse for Kalen DeBoer when he loses. These idiots in Alabama who are used to having the best program in college football for 2 decades are going to melt down. Look at the schedule. You've got Georgia at home. Georgia's going to tap them titties. Georgia's going to win. You've got at LSU, that's tough. You got at Oklahoma, that's tough. You've got at Wisconsin, that's not easy compared to the usual neutral site cakewalk Alabama has. You also have a home game against Missouri. There's 3 or 4 losses on this schedule. Why? Because Jalen Milroe, guys, people can lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you. He's not that guy. We pretended he was last year. We pretended he was. Oh my goodness, do we pretend he was? He lost the job against South Florida. Nobody else took it. He came back, and the talent of Alabama won a lot of games. He's not that guy. The offensive coordinator that figured him out last year and knew how to get him to where y'all needed to go, he's not there anymore. Kalen DeBoer cannot throw the football well enough to win road games at LSU, at Oklahoma, at Wisconsin. Not going to win all those road games with this guy at quarterback. Receiver talent is okay. Nowhere near where it's been. Running back talent, pretty good, but nobody's stepped up yet. Offensive line, defense, those all look pretty good. But this is a 9-3 team, and this fan base is not going to be able to handle it. That is the truth about the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2024.
All right, there's our premise. So let's take it all on. Let's take it all for what it is. All right. First off, you got to understand Brandon Walker is a take master. He's going out and giving you takes because he knows what clicks. And let's just be honest. If you poke the bear, if you poke the Alabama Crimson Tide fan base, people will respond, and look at myself. I'm falling right into his trap. So there you go. We gave you your click. Let's now figure out exactly what's wrong and what's right. First off, the first big thing, he said, they haven't lost more than 2 games since 2007. Well, you lost 3 regular season games in 2010, and that, the season moved right along, or the tenure, the Nick Saban tenure moved right along. That was right after the national championship, the 2009 national championship season. Now, you haven't had a season that bad since. You lost 2 games in, 2022, where you went to the Sugar Bowl. You lost to Tennessee and LSU. You had a close game down in Gainesville that year. But here we are. It's Kalen DeBoer's first season, and I want to explore what the worst case scenario is. Because we want to find out what the worst case scenario is and then compare whether that worst case scenario is going to be worthy of this meltdown that Brandon Walker insinuates. Now, before we do that, I want to send you back 2 weeks ago. My friend Mason Woods and I, for BamaCentral.com, right here on this program, broke down the season game by game by game by game. We predicted all wins and losses, all 12 games. And Mason Woods, just spoiler alert, if you don't want to go back and listen to that episode, basically had Alabama at 11-1. I believe that I had Alabama at 10-2. All right, so there we go. There was honest feelings about this Alabama football season. And let's get this out of the way. Will there be an undefeated team in the SEC this year? No, there will not be. I know Texas's schedule has a very favorable schedule. They barely leave the state of Texas. They've got a favorable schedule, but no, they won't be undefeated. Alabama won't be undefeated as well. Georgia will not be undefeated. You look at the who's who in college football in the SEC. Missouri, you're not going to be undefeated. LSU, you're not going to be undefeated. Oklahoma, you're not going to be undefeated. So let's strike this out of the way right now. You don't need to be undefeated to get to the SEC championship game. But with that in mind, and we'll take the crimson-colored glasses off. Let's walk through the schedule really quickly and decide what is the worst-case scenario. A lot of you found my Twitter yesterday at Gaither6 and commented 8-4, 8-4, 8-4. You can be like my friend Stingray, who commented on Facebook earlier, 9-3 at worst. Okay, great. A lot of people are in the same ballpark, but I think that you might even end up in a worst-case scenario. A worst-case scenario at 7-5. You look through, you're beating Western Kentucky, you're beating USF, and honestly, you're beating Wisconsin. If you're getting these 5 losses, you're going to have to get combined losses to Georgia, at Tennessee. You're going to have to lose to Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, maybe Auburn. So one of those is you're going to get a win. Let's go ahead and say Alabama's going to end up beating at LSU or Missouri. You're probably, and really and truly, I think you're winning at Oklahoma. Your losses are Georgia at home, at Tennessee, Missouri, at LSU, and Auburn. Boom, there's your 5 losses. And let's call this worst case scenario. Do I think they're going to lose all 5 of those games? Absolutely not. No, I don't. I don't think they're going to lose all 5 of those games. Again, I think that Alabama's going to end up going probably 10-2 or 11-1. I think that it's going to be a fairly strong season for Alabama. I think that when Georgia comes into Tuscaloosa, they're going to be in for a bit of a surprise. But on the face, all right, we're taking 7-5 as it is. You've lost against Georgia. You've lost at Tennessee. You've lost against Missouri. You've lost against LSU, and you've lost against Auburn. So you've lost a lot of games against big rivals. Goodness gracious, losing at Auburn at Bryant-Denny Stadium would be a massive, massive heartbreaker and probably unrealistic. But we're taking worst case scenario. We're envisioning the worst, which we all believe will not happen. But let's just play along with the game a little bit and play along with the worst case scenario. Would a 7-5 season, you miss out on the SEC championship game, you're going to, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, or you're going to maybe even the Capital One Bowl, probably not the Capital One Bowl, but you're going to a mid-tier bowl game as first-year coach for Kalen DeBoer. Would that put the Alabama faithful into a frenzy? Yes. Yes, it would. You've lost to Auburn in your last game. You're in a frenzy already. You go up to Tennessee and probably going to get a little bit of grace. You've lost to Georgia at home. That's probably going to start simmering some of the negative feelings. I do believe that you're going to win out there in Oklahoma because I've looked deeper into the Oklahoma game and don't know if their offense is really going to be better this year or even as good as it was last year. They're going to need for their offense to be pretty much as good as it was last year and their defense to take a huge step forward. I think their Oklahoma defense will take a pretty nice little step forward, but I predict the Oklahoma offense to take a nice step backwards as well. So we're bouncing around here, kind of dancing with a few losses in our head. Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, you're gone down to LSU, and that's giving you a loss. And then you might have lost to Missouri at home at homecoming. There's 5 losses right there. Again, I don't think this is likely. I think we're playing a worst-case scenario. But you've lost at home to Missouri. You've lost at home to Auburn and Georgia. Those 3 losses would combined send the Alabama faithful into a frenzy. Now, would Greg Byrne end up saying, okay, we're pulling the plug on Kalen DeBoer after 1 year? I think that's unlikely. I think Greg Byrne has shown himself to be a pretty level-headed athletic director. I think he's shown himself to have a long-term vision for the future of his athletic programs. Of course, you don't want to have a 7-5 season. And again, I predict that this is a worst-case scenario. But let's just take Brandon Walker at what he said. Let's go back. 7-5. That's crazy. Joe, you're crazy. That's nuts. That's not going to happen. And I agree. That's not going to happen. We're taking an extreme worst case scenario. All right. So let's dial it back a little bit. Let's step a little bit closer to reality. My man Stingray and a lot of you have said 9-3, and Brandon Walker said 3 or 4 loss season. Let's play it at 9-3. 9-3. You probably lost. You probably lost at Tennessee. That was my main loss when we actually did our serious game-by-game predictions. You've lost probably that Georgia game at home. All right, so you've lost to Georgia, you've lost to Tennessee, and pick your third loss, whether it's at LSU, whether it's at Oklahoma. I think that Auburn game is pretty safely going to be a win for Alabama here in Tuscaloosa. But that Missouri game, the homecoming matchup, October 26th, the week after the Tennessee road trip, I think presents some problems for Alabama. So pick your third loss. Whether it's at Tennessee, Missouri, and Georgia, bam, there's your 3. Whether it's Georgia, at Tennessee, and then at LSU, there's your 3. All right, we're picking those 3. You have missed out on the SEC championship. All right, you missed out on the SEC title game. You're probably finishing 4th, 5th in the league, probably tied for 4th or tied for 5th, depending on, the standings above you. Again, go back to the very beginning. I don't think that there's going to be a single undefeated team in the SEC this season. I think everyone is going to incur at least one loss. So at 9-3, you've lost to Georgia, who will likely be up in the top 2 or 3 in the conference. You've lost to Tennessee, who will be a top half of the conference, top 8 team in the conference. And again, it's going to be much different having all 16 teams in the same division. And let's just pick out that Missouri game, right? Missouri and Tennessee back-to-back weeks. Okay, the Alabama faithful is feeling a little bit upset, a lot upset, losing 2 games in a row. Oh my gosh, now that would send Tuscaloosa into a little bit of a depression. But you've lost those 2 games in a row, and you followed up with wins at LSU. Mercer is a gimme, at Oklahoma, and against Auburn. You finished with 4 in a row, and 3 of them against premier opponents. So at 9-3, you're missing out on the SEC championship, and boy, that does stink because Atlanta is, Bryant-Denny Stadium East. But at 9-3, does Alabama still make the college football 12-team playoff? I think there's a pretty good chance that they do. I think that there's a pretty good chance that Alabama makes the college football 12-team playoff with the 10, 11, 12 seed. And if that's the case, Brandon Walker, are Alabama fans jumping off a cliff for qualifying after qualifying for the first college football playoff, the expanded playoff? No, absolutely not. Alabama fans are instead saying, "Oh, we're the 8th seed, we're the 9th seed, we're the 10th seed, 11th, 12th seed. Okay, let's find out what road trip we get to take in December, and let's go take it and show up and support these guys, support Kalen DeBoer." I think it's kind of absurd to suggest that the Alabama faithful will be jumping off a cliff or, falling into a depression if they're at 9-3, but making the college football playoff. Wins the last 4 weeks of the year, wins against at LSU, wins at Oklahoma, a win over the Auburn Tigers. Those are quality wins, and you're going to start hearing a lot of conversations about quality wins and best losses. And, you're going to have to be splitting hairs when you're getting into, that 10, 11, 12 seed ranking in the college football playoff. And okay, you lost to the Georgia Bulldogs, who hypothetically in this case are in the SEC championship and maybe have only lost 1 game. Okay, you lost at Tennessee, probably the toughest 2 or 3 places to play in college football. All right, you lost back-to-back weeks with Missouri, who's riding. I think the Missouri Tigers are a really good up-and-coming team. I think that people are underrating and underestimating the Missouri Tigers. Brady Cook, Luther Burton, Theo Weiss, they've got one of the best passing offenses in the country. And will that give a challenge? Will that create a challenge for Kane Womack and this new 4-2-5 defense? I believe it will. I think that Alabama still is going to win that game. Go back to us 2 weeks ago when we did game by game. Look, this is all hypothetical at this point, but my game by game, I think that Alabama is going to go 10-2 or 11-1. And so if you're at 9-3, Are you stepping off a cliff? Are you jumping off the DeBoer bus right there if he qualifies for the college football playoff? No, you're not. So I wonder, to the Alabama fan, what is the lowest acceptable threshold? Is it qualify for the college football playoff? Because, look, I think it's going to be extremely difficult to get to Atlanta and play in the SEC championship. Not that Alabama can't do it, but because of the way that the season has been structured, because there's no more divisions, I think that even if Nick Saban were in charge, it would be extremely difficult to find your way into Atlanta. Now, can Alabama find its way into Atlanta and play in the SEC championship? Absolutely. They can go to Atlanta, win the SEC championship, and be one of the top 4 national seeds in the college football expanded playoff. Absolutely can. I think that Brandon Walker is speaking out of his rear end a little bit, particularly when he digs at Alabama fans. I mean, he makes comments and remarks about Alabama fans and their intellect. And look, let's just be honest about things. Every college football fan base has a section of the fan that may not be the smartest, may not be the most rational. So take your easy fruit, take your low-hanging fruit, and make fun of the Alabama fans' intellect. You're not very, come on, that's not very intelligent either, Brandon Walker. Let's dive a little bit deeper let's be a little bit smarter than taking the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, come on, that's too easy, my friend. But really and truly, I think that at 9-3, you have enough quality games on the schedule to say, yeah, Alabama's at 9-3, but the Crimson Tide is still one of the 12 best teams in college football. If you've lost to Georgia, if you've lost to Missouri, and boom, Missouri's only lost one other game. Missouri's got a tough game against Oklahoma a week or two after Alabama. I think that you have enough quality wins and not bad losses to still be in the college football playoff. So Brandon Walker says that the reason that he's going out on this take is because Jalen Milroe is not that guy. Jalen Milroe, he pretended to be that guy last year, and we all pretended that he was that guy last year. My man's finished 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting last year. 2,800 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He had another 530 yards on the ground. And let's be perfectly honest, Jalen Milroe was running for his life a lot of the time last football season because of the offensive line, whether it was early in the season where you were getting a lot of pressure from the left guard, from the right guard, or if you were all season long, pressure from the left tackle. Jalen Milroe had issues with protection all year long last year and was scrambling all year long. And we've talked about it on the program before that I was not overly, you can talk about Isaiah Bond all you want and Jermaine Burton going in the third round all you want, but I was not overly impressed with either of those two wide receivers as wide receiver ones. We'll see what Jermaine Burton ends up doing in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals, and we'll see what Isaiah Bond ends up doing with Steve Sarkisian, Quinn Ewers, and maybe Arch Manning. But right now, you look at the Alabama wide receiver room with Jeremy Bernard, and I think that you have upgraded with Jeremy Bernard, Kobe Prentice, Emmanuel Henderson, and Kendrick Law. I think that group of 4 is going to be better than any group of 4 that Alabama rolled out last season. And then he talked about Tommy Rees. He talked about Tommy Rees was able to unlock Jalen Milroe, and I vehemently disagree. Now, this is not a bash Tommy Rees session, but I think that Tommy Rees was limited in what he did offensively as an offensive coordinator, either from his own creativity or we don't want to bash the old man. We don't want to bash the GOAT of college football, or he was limited by what Nick Saban would allow him to do. I think there were a lot of instances last year and really over almost every single year that wasn't run by Steve Sarkisian where Nick Saban, while he might have said he doesn't have a hand in the offense, I think Nick Saban absolutely had a hand on the offense. Of course, you've got Lane Kiffin calling his own plays during the Nick Saban era, and you've got Steve Sarkisian dialing up his own plays and schemes in the Nick Saban era. But basically, outside of those two offensive coordinators, you look at Jim McElwain, you look at Brian Daboll, you look at who's the guy who went up to Michigan that was not very good, not very talented. I'm losing my mind on him. But you look at Mike Locksley as well and Tommy Rees last season, that some of these offensive coordinators, Nick Saban almost had a leash on, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's going to be the case this season. I am of the opinion that Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, and Jamarcus Shepard will unlock Jalen Milroe to an even deeper level. I think that they are simplifying the game for Jalen Milroe. I think they're utilizing Jeremy Bernard as a wide receiver one, because I think he is a true wide receiver one. And then he talked about, the running backs are good, but they're unproven. All right, you're right. They haven't taken a full load, but they're not going to take a full load this season. Jam Miller, Richard Young, Justice Haynes, they're not going to take a full load. They're going to be splitting things almost a third of the way each. You're going to get a little action for the freshman from Mississippi as well, but you're going to get a lot of all three running backs. And I think all three running backs are going to be very, very dangerous. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, and Richard Young are going to be very, very, very complimentary to Jalen Milroe. And look, I don't think that Jace McClellan or Roydell Williams were bad by any stretch of the imagination. No, they were quality players, and they left everything they had on the field for the Crimson Tide. But as far as pure talent goes, you just compare last season's running back room to this season's running back room, and I think that it's better. And so you talk about, we're not going to, Jalen Milroe, he's not that guy. He's not that guy. We're pretending. I think that he has the potential to have an even better season for several factors, even if he didn't improve, which I believe that he has improved as a passer over the last 4 to 5 months of the offseason. I think we saw that a little bit during the A-Day game, and I think we saw that a little bit during practice film and during practice clips that we were able to see, that his mechanics have gotten better as a passer. But okay, let's just pretend that Jalen Milroe didn't get better at all. Not even one iota better. The offensive line certainly better. You brought in an upgrade at center on Parker Brailsford. Tyler Booker has gotten a year older, wiser, and stronger. You've got your left tackle, Caden Proctor, who's gotten a year older, wiser, and stronger. I mean, my man was a true freshman last season. You look at the right side, the right guard, and Jaden Roberts now has a lot more experience. And, of course, you do have a little bit of questions at right tackle, but you have experience right there that's played right there, whether it's Wilkin Formby, whether it's Miles McVay. You're going to have a player right there that is quality, even Elijah Pritchett. Could be Elijah Pritchett as well. You're going to have a player right there that's been in the system. I think the offensive line is going to be much better next season. Now, maybe it's just me and my rosy-colored glasses, and I am an optimistic person. I like to believe in people until they prove me wrong. It becomes a fault in my personal life. It becomes a fault when I watch sports. And that's not just applied to Alabama. You can see that in basically all my coverage, where we do coverage of the Kansas City Royals and the San Antonio Spurs and the Miami Hurricanes. We do all kinds of coverage right here on the Walsh Writing Network. And I usually give the benefit of the doubt that, player X, Y, or Z is going to be better after an offseason. They're obviously going to work and they're going to improve their game. So, okay. That's just me. Let's own that. But I think the Alabama offensive line is going to be better in 2024 due to more experience, due to a little bit better coaching, in my opinion. It seems like Chris Kapilovich has really energized the Alabama offensive line. All right, so again, if Jalen Milroe didn't improve one iota, the offensive line has improved. And the wide receiver room has improved, in my estimation. And the running back room has improved. And so you want to say that this Alabama offense is not going to be able to throw the football on the road to get these wins? Brandon Walker, I think that honestly your little TikTok video that you've put out there to get clicks and to get views, it obviously has done that. You've gotten your clicks, you've gotten your views, but really and truly, I think that your take is all smoke and no fire. Look, Tommy Rees. If Tommy Rees was a quality offensive coordinator, and I think that he was an okay offensive coordinator, but if he was a really quality coach, why did he end up going to coach tight ends with the Cleveland Browns? What college program was offering him an offensive coordinator role after Nick Saban's retirement? What NFL program was offering him a quarterback coaching role / offensive coordinator / passing game coordinator? No one. I mean, Tommy Rees went from offensive coordinator right here in Tuscaloosa to position coach with the Cleveland Browns. What was the last coordinator that did that? Oh, didn't Tosh Lapoy go from defensive coordinator to lineman, defensive line coach, outside linebackers coach with the Cleveland Browns, the same organization? And look, is Tosh Lapoy that great of a defensive coordinator? No. Tosh Lapoy had his play calling duties pulled midway through the season in favor of Pete Golding. And so, Brandon Walker, what's the worst case scenario? Is it 8-4? Probably so. That's probably the most realistic worst case scenario. And are the Alabama faithful coming after Kalen DeBoer? Are they running Kalen DeBoer out of town for an 8-4 season? I think it depends on who those 4 losses are to. If you've lost to Auburn, if you've lost to Tennessee, if you've lost to Georgia, if those are 3 of your 4 losses, then the noise is noising. The noise is rising. You're going to hear some buzz, but does Greg Byrne ever really respond to buzz? Does Greg Byrne ever really respond to fan pressure? Not really. At least not in his tenure. Now, he hasn't really had a whole lot of opportunities to respond to fan pressure because basically all the coaches at the University of Alabama during his tenure have performed pretty well. You obviously had the scandal with Brad Bohannon, and you never really allowed the fans to get loud about that because you took care of that noise. You took care of that problem ASAP. I guess you had a little bit of noise with Avery Johnson losing to Norfolk State, but you went in and you handled that pretty quickly, and you hired Nate Oates, and your track record has been pretty daggum good from an athletic director standpoint. So look, are you 8-4 Alabama football, and you end up in the Capital One Bowl, or you end up in one of these secondary bowls? Are you that upset? Probably so, from a fan base perspective. Oh man, you wasted talent. You coulda, woulda, shoulda. But time will tell. I think that's unrealistic. I think the most realistic worst case scenario is 9-3. I think the schedule is more difficult than maybe the average person thinks. You look through, I think that Georgia game is going to be a very big challenge. I think you're going to win pretty easily at Wisconsin. I think the USF game is going to be closer than people imagine, but again, Alabama will win. I think the challenge at Tennessee is going to be very, 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 very challenging. I mean, you catch Tennessee in the 4th game of a 5-game set, and you're going up to Tennessee. We all remember what happened 2 years ago in Knoxville, and obviously penalties played a role there. But you left, 5 touchdown passes to Jalen Hyatt, and you incurred or you brought on, 17, 18 penalties in Neyland Stadium. Maybe some of them were legitimate, some of them weren't, but that's what happened. The flags were out in Knoxville, and you lost. That's going to be a really challenging game on Saturday, October 19th. And then you're going to come back home to play Missouri for homecoming, and that's also going to be a really, really challenging game, in my opinion. People can say, oh, Missouri, they're not brand, they're not, tip-top blue blood, and they're not. We understand that. But I think the Missouri Tigers are building something under Eli Drinkwitz. And maybe that's just my optimism for Missouri because they're part of our coverage package right here on the Walsh Writing Network. And I tend to, once I find out information on teams and players, I tend to start believing in them. So you can check us out on the Joe Gaither Show on Missouri Central pretty much once a week as well, just like you do on BamaCentral daily. I think that Missouri game is going to be a challenge for Alabama. But I think Alabama is going to win. I think the talent is going to overshadow and basically shine through in the end. I think 9-3 is probably your most realistic worst case scenario for this team. Now, you blow it up and really you're probably going to be dealing with a lot of noise if you're 7-5, as we hypothesized at the beginning of the program. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that is the crazy man talk. I think that is the maybe the anti-Alabama man talk with the 7-5. So here we are right here on July 9th. You got a week until SEC Media Days. And I think the worst case scenario for this team is probably right at 9-3. Probably going to be a challenging year, but 9-3 leaves you right on the cusp of the college football playoff. So Brandon Walker, no, the Alabama faithful is not going to be running Kalen DeBoer out of Tuscaloosa for a 9-3 season, particularly if that 9-3 season results in Alabama making the first expanded college football playoff. You get to that 12-team playoff, you pull off an upset in the first round against maybe an ACC team or a Big 12 team or anyone really. Yeah, I think that the Alabama faithful is going to be pretty happy with the first year of Kalen DeBoer. And maybe I'm giving the Alabama faithful too much credit because, look, I am of the opinion that, you can't win the national championship every single year. And we've had a couple of different years where Alabama's been one game short under Nick Saban. And you hear some of the noise, oh, is it time for Nick Saban to retire? I think that that's just voices from the small minority, the vocal minority, if you will. So there we are at our conclusion. I think 9-3 is the worst case scenario for Alabama football this year. And no, I do not think that will result in the Alabama faithful running off Kalen DeBoer, running Kalen DeBoer out of town. And I think that your premise, Brandon Walker, being based on Jalen Milroe not being that guy is flawed. I think that maybe Jalen Milroe and his athleticism saved a lot from last season, saved a lot of the offense last year, and made a lot of big plays in clutch moments. Now, was it always consistent? No, it wasn't always consistent. We're not going to be foolish enough to sell you that it was. But I think that Jalen Milroe has a very, very good chance to take a step forward in his own game. And even if he doesn't, I think that all the position groups around Jalen Milroe look very, very strong. It looked like they're taking a step forward as well. We want to take a transition. We're going to take a transition and talk about Alabama basketball because the Alabama basketball non-conference schedule got released earlier today. Before we do that, we want to tell you about my friend Derek Daniel. Derek Daniel with State Farm Insurance. You can call him today for a quote on your home, life, auto insurance, renter's insurance. Get your boat insured. Get your trailers insured at 205-758-3391. Derek Daniel and his team will be happy to get on the phone with you. They'll handle your quotes quickly. You need a local agent who can walk you through your coverage line by line by line, and Derek Daniel is that guy. You can go visit him up on Highway 69 North at 4604 Highway 69, Northport, Alabama, 35473, just past the Tiger Rock as you're heading up Highway 69. So he's still about 5 minutes away from where I am right now. Great local agent. He's a guy that I trust dearly, and I really appreciate him jumping on and supporting the program. If you are upset with your coverages, if you're thinking that your rates are getting too high, give him a call today at State Farm at 205-758-3391. All right, let's take a short little transition here, and we want to talk about Alabama basketball because you guys, if you follow the program at all, know that I am a crazy basketball fan, and I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to hide it anymore. Well, maybe I never did. I'm not going to hide it at all. Alabama basketball finalizes its 13-game non-conference season, and we've talked about a lot of these games already on this show. But now that it's all finalized and you got, dates and times, no times quite yet, but you got a lot of dates. We will wait on tip-off times and television channels, but it's going to be a very, very fun Alabama basketball season. It starts on November 4th. November 4th, you're taking on UNC Asheville. So let's get a countdown. Days till November 4 is 118 days away. Woo, it'll be here before you know it. 118 days away, Alabama's taking on UNC Asheville right there in Coleman Coliseum. You start off with 3 bye games in Coleman Coliseum, UNC Asheville, Arkansas State on the 8th, and McNeese State on the 11th. So you're bringing back Brian Hodgson. And let me just say, pause right there. Last year when Arkansas State came, the crowd was absolutely dismal. It was terrible. It was awful. There was almost no one in there. And look, I know Arkansas State is not a marquee name. And look, Alabama's probably going to win that game by 40 points. Yeah, they are. And you should expect to. So maybe you think, oh, that's a night where I can watch it from the couch. It's going to be an easy game. We'll save our money for bigger games. But look, Brian Hodgson had a big hand in building what you're experiencing right now with the Alabama basketball program. And I think that, and again, this is my selfish opinion, and you can take it or leave it if you want to. You can comment and tell me that I'm wrong at Joe Gaither 6 on the Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or whatever your favorite social media machine is. But I think that Brian Hodgson deserves for you to show up and support your Alabama Crimson Tide. Don't go cheering for Arkansas State. Look, nobody's telling you to do that. But Brian Hodgson deserves at least your round of applause at the beginning of the game when they announce, and the head coach for the Arkansas Arkansas State Red Wolves is Brian Hodgson. Everybody should stand up and give him an applause because I believe that he absolutely has a large hand in what happened and what has happened here at the Capstone under Nate Oates. So Arkansas State comes in on November the 8th. November the 11th, another chance for you to come to Coleman Coliseum against McNeese State. And you think, why the heck would I want to come watch Alabama play against McNeese State? Well, one, you want to come because it's Alabama basketball. But two, if you have any emotion about Will Wade still left over from his time at LSU, here's your chance to let it out. Will Wade is the head coach for McNeese State, and that will be your chance to chant FBI, FBI at Will Wade. And so that'll be November 11th. Then Alabama 4 days later has a huge road game. November 15th, going to Purdue. No more Zach Edey up at Purdue, but Purdue's still a great, great program. That's going to be the first road game of the year for Alabama basketball. Then 5 days later, I believe it's going to be on a Wednesday, Alabama is taking on Illinois in Birmingham for the CM Newton Classic. Now, check your schedules. That is an earlier date for the CM Newton Classic by almost a month than what it's been the last handful of years. Last handful of years has been around December 15, December 20, right in that range. By about a month, it's going to be earlier on the calendar to get to the BJCC. Illinois, going to be a strong program again this year. NCAA tournament team last year. You're going to want to get to Birmingham for that matchup. Then November 26, 27, and 29, Alabama is going out to Las Vegas and going to be playing in the Players Era Festival. You're taking on Houston. You're either going to be playing Notre Dame or Rutgers on that second day, and then on the third day, it's still to be determined. So 3 really, really tough games right there in Las Vegas on Thanksgiving week. And so if you are looking for a reason to get away from the family and not want to celebrate Thanksgiving with the family, a Las Vegas trip with the boys or with the girls might be on the menu. I'm hopeful that the Joe Gaither show can be out at the Players Era Festival. I've never been out to Las Vegas, and I think that sounds like a great excuse to do that. Have Thanksgiving turkey with the Tide out there in Las Vegas. And they're coming back. Alabama's coming back to the East Coast, but they're going to stay on the road at North Carolina December 4th for the ACC SEC Challenge, a rematch of the Sweet 16 matchup. That's going to be epic over there at North Carolina. Then the marquee game in Coleman Coliseum this year, as far as non-conference action goes, is going to be December 14th against the Creighton Blue Jays. Yes, Trevor Relaford was fouled, and Creighton finally comes to Tuscaloosa to experience a little retribution. And this is kind of going to be the back half of the home-and-home series that Alabama scheduled last year. Alabama went up to Creighton, held a lead for quite some time, and then let it slip away. So we'll see if Alabama can defeat the Creighton Blue Jays on December 14th, and they go up on the road to North Dakota to basically play Grant Nelson's home a visit. And I think that's going to be, I think that really shows Nate Oates' heart a little bit. Nate Oates taking a page out of the Patrick Murphy playbook, where he's scheduling a game for one player. And for one player, for his family and for his friends to see him in person. Patrick Murphy has a pretty nice little history of scheduling games close to his seniors' hometowns if he can, or events close to his seniors' hometown if he can, to let them play in front of their home crowd. This is what Nate Oates is doing for Grant Nelson on December the 18th, going up to North Dakota. You're coming back home to the Coleman Coliseum for the final 2 games in the non-conference schedule, December 22nd against Kent State and December 29th against South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. And so you got 13 games on the schedule, 7 games on the schedule will be against NCAA teams from last year. And that is just absolutely loaded. More than half the games are against NCAA tournament teams from last year. You're taking on 3 of the 4 number 1 seeds from last year's NCAA tournament team. You're taking on Houston, Purdue, and North Carolina, all number 1 seeds in last year's NCAA tournament. And so this is the new norm. This is the new norm for Alabama basketball. It's going to be the second year in a row that Alabama basketball has the toughest strength of schedule in the country. It's going to be really the 3rd out of 4 years where Alabama basketball has a top 5 strength of schedule in the country. It's at least the second time in my memory under Nate Oates where you went out and you played 3 of last year's number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. This is the new norm. And really, it's Nate Oates' way of ensuring that Alabama basketball is seeded properly or seeded nicely in the NCAA tournament. You look at last year, you got through the non-conference schedule. You got to the first 11 games at 6-5. And people are like, oh my gosh, is this team any good? And of course, some of those questions were valid. The defensive questions were absolutely valid. Offensive questions, not so much, as Alabama had one of the most historic offenses in the nation last year. But at 6-5, you still had Alabama projected as basically a top 5 seed, and that held throughout the SEC season. Yeah, you didn't win the SEC, and you took your lumps a little bit in the SEC. I believe they finished with 4 losses in the league last year. I don't have that up in my notes, but you finished with fifth? I believe tied for 5th in the SEC regular season. And it didn't really ever hurt you. Alabama was always safely in the NCAA tournament because of what Nate Oates did in his non-conference schedule. And so I'm very excited about it. 118 days away from UNC Asheville coming to Coleman Coliseum. I think that is going to be another great basketball season. We'll see how this depth plays out for the Crimson Tide. We had Blake Byler on about a week ago to highlight some of his newcomer breakdowns. I know on Sunday he put out his Darian Reed newcomer breakdown. I want to encourage you guys to go read those breakdowns. It's a great way to get familiar with some of the new players on the team. So it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great rest of the week. We're going to get ready for SEC Media Days. We're going to find out what we should ask Jalen Milroe, Malachi Moore, and Tyler Booker. We're hopeful that we get just a little bit of time with all 3 of those guys. Last year, we were very fortunate to get just a little bit of time with Kool-Aid McKinstry, with J.C. Latham, and with Dallas Turner. And we hope to improve on that experience this year in Dallas. Myself and Will Miller will be driving out to Dallas to be ready for all things SEC Media Days. So we're going to get out of here for the day. We appreciate everybody who's joined us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, at Joe Gaither 6, or on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody who has joined us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We particularly appreciate Purple Turtle Roofing. Purple Turtle Roofing is the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. So if you're listening in Mississippi as well, you need some roof work done, call Purple Turtle Roofing. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all roof replacement needs. Call Dustin, his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for a free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free. You want to get it checked out right now before anything happens in your home. So give them a call today at 877-787-6635. They'll schedule your free roof inspection, and they'll make sure that you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. We appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.